You can bend the rules here and there once in a while, but constantly letting things go because of non-compliance. It usually comes down to really it's kind of like a workflow that you're breaking that's not compliant. You can do that once or twice, but you can't make that the norm.
So in fulfillment, the problem usually isn't the one big failure, it's the small exception you allowed yesterday becoming the broken workflow everyone works around tomorrow. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to episode 129 of Resilient Supply Chain, Stories and Strategies that Keep Business Moving. I'm your host, Tom Raftery. Today, I'm joined by Leo Rodriguez, VP at Riverplate Inc., a third-party logistics provider in Southern California handling e-commerce, retail, warehousing, distribution, freight logistics, kitting, and assembly. Leo brings the operator's view, the bit brands often don't see until the chargebacks arrive or the customer experience slips or the warehouse starts living on workarounds and crossed fingers. In this conversation, we get into why fulfillment resilience depends less on heroic firefighting and more on process discipline, clean data, early 3PL involvement, and making sure the physical operation and the system reality actually match. Interestingly, sometimes the merchant leak isn't a dramatic supply chain disruption. It's a box that fits beautifully in a container but is overweight or oversized for the channel it eventually has to serve. Let's dive in. Leo, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Leo Rodriguez. I'm the VP here at Riverplate Inc. We're a 3PL in Southern California. So hello again.
Okay, Leo, and how did you get into being VP at Riverplate?
Gosh, I started about 17, going into my 17th year. It was a family business. It was growing, scaling quickly. My background coming out of college is physical therapy. So I was in pre-physical therapy doing some aid and assistance work. Realized that the chatter amongst the family business was a lot of stress, a lot of growing pains to say the least. And I really honestly, it came in as more of like a summer job. The mother needed some loyal eyes. There was at that point 2 or 3 different facilities, probably totaling around 40,000 square feet, smaller, right? So it came in. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I really got the juices flowing. There was never a dull day, a lot of different challenges, but I liked it. So I just then put anything I jump into, I put 120% into it, right? So I went in with the idea of first just to help get things streamlined where I could. I'm very processes oriented. With a science background, right? It gets a little analytical there, right? Took some classes and really just hands-on. I worked in the operations, in the pick and pack. I got forklift certified, did all that, and then worked my way up. I didn't just get a position just because I was the owner's son. So, and it's come a long way. So here, 17 years later, we're at 138,000 square feet, actually in the city of Simi Valley, California, providing omnichannel services, e-commerce, warehousing, distribution, freight logistics, kitting and assembly across e-commerce, retail, so D2C and B2B business. So really, it's been a fun ride.
Fascinating. And
Yeah.
what does your day-to-day world look like now in logistics and fulfillment?
Yeah. Day to day, I come in, we brief with the management teams, right? Front office operations. We do the morning briefs and then we do an end of day brief. So in the morning briefs, we talk about still, because things rapidly change in our environment, right? So what we talked about at 4 p.m. on Monday, Tuesday, you might have a couple of new things that popped up that are urgent or have changed, right? So we brief with the operations managers. We have our receiving and inbound team. We have our essentially what we call our pick and pack or D2C team that handles a lot of the each picking and all the channels that are their e-commerce channels, right? That are flowing through. And the CSMs, the account managers directly that they're interconnected, right, with the operations and making essentially is that jumping into our system, our warehouse management system, and pulling out the reporting, showing what are our hot rush items in terms of orders or inbounds, just to jump off in terms of priority, so that those are scheduled appropriately. And then, yeah, seeing how also if there's movement that needs to be done in terms of cross dock orders we have carriers lined up. Since we do quite a bit of retail, the Targets, the Walmarts, the Amazon, the Five Belows of the world's making sure those loads and everything that was scheduled for the day, everything's tightened up and it's ready to go. Yeah.
And obviously, fulfillment generally tends to look simple from the outside right up until it isn't. So, what would you say are the earliest signs a fulfillment operation is starting to come apart?
Yeah, there's so many different angles. We are at the mercy of everyone else in the supply chain. Everyone can have these forecasts, projections, or what they would consider, well, even we would consider it's like, okay, these are scheduled events that are going to happen every single day. I would say, yes, maybe if I would take a guess, 80% of those scheduled events are going to occur at the time they're going to occur. 20% of those, it's not going to happen. Something changes. Documentation maybe is not provided accurately from a third party. So we always try to prevent, right, and be proactive anywhere we can. If there is changes, did those changes actually flow through the proper channels, right? Some of it is, are you taking shortcuts? If you're taking shortcuts, you got to be careful, right? Because everything that we do flows a lot through it. Our warehouse management system, our transportation management systems, we integrate with a lot of different order management systems and ERPs. So any type of data flow that's interrupted or maneuvered in a different way could be impactful at the end result. Our advanced ship notices are sent to retailers or inventory positions within the warehouse that you're having to make the order came in that was for 15 pallets. Now they added 18 pallets and the carrier's there. So just physically going, okay, let's go ahead and pull from these locations and prep the load, making
Mhm.
sure that on the back end everything aligns because everything that's happening physically in the operation needs to happen virtually in your systems. They need to run in tandem, right? So parallel.
Sure. And where do then brands most often underestimate complexity when they add channels like direct to consumer, D2C, as you mentioned earlier, retail, wholesale, Amazon?
Yeah. What's really important for brands is that especially when they outsource their fulfillment logistics to a third-party logistics provider, is get them involved early. Like really have these discovery calls. A lot of the 3PL should have already a method to the madness, right? So they should already have essentially workflows, processes in place, have experience to where essentially it's almost treating it as like a checklist, right? Brands might see that, okay, well, this is just, you just do the integration and do a couple simple configurations and we're good to go. But a lot of it is, okay, well, maybe your package type or the way that your inventory sits within the warehouse, it's not efficient or it's not conducive to really handle this specific channel, this specific even e-commerce. This e-commerce might have additional value-added services that you require to meet their compliance to actually deliver to the customer. Example is some of them require specific information that needs to be as a return address on their packing list. Little things like that to where, okay, well, that needs to be coded in there. If that's coming in direct, if they want specific information that needs to be essentially a custom packing list, and it's a requirement, then that needs to be obviously discussed before. But maybe the 5 other e-commerce plugins that they have, those marketplaces, they've never even come across that. They've never seen that. So big part of it is sending over that compliance guideline or the vendor guideline. And now I'm jumping over kind of more into the retail end, which is a whole nother world, right? Because I would say that these brands should always look at anytime you're bringing it into a retail brand, minimum, I would say, if you can, 6 weeks, at least 6 weeks. Sometimes EDI just takes 4 to 6 weeks to connect and do the testing,
Right.
right? So yeah, it's very important. Get to the 3PL involved early. And essentially, there needs to be a checklist of everything from because there's the vendor setup part, supplier and vendor setup, but then there's certain setups that obviously the 3PL have to do to make sure that that integration of testing is going to work properly, setting up ship points, making sure that the ASNs are being processed or the EDI documents are flowing as the retailer expects them. Because as you may know, that chargebacks are significant and even more so, they're growing nowadays. These retailers and these marketplaces need efficiencies in the world that they live in, right? So
All right. So would it be fair to say that the real failure points may be inbound, not outbound?
yeah, that's a great question, right? Because it really starts with that inbound. I would say even start at when it's like after like the R&D part of it and then the development of how they're going to package their SKUs, what are their goals? Because they sometimes will think, well, we're starting as an e-commerce brand, right? We're only doing e-commerce, but we have goals of going into retail. Now, if you start at a small scale, you're bringing in only a very limited amount of inventory, handful of pallets. Well, okay, maybe you'll cycle through those, but if you're bringing in containers worth, look at in discussion with your 3PL, they can essentially help you out. Like, hey, you know what? Yes, I get it. This is to cube out your product in a container for your inventory. Might make sense to put 50 units in a box and it's going to fit really nicely. But in a lot of these retail programs or a lot marketplaces, you're oversized in terms of their max dimensions and you might be overweight. So now you're going to bring that in. Great. You're going to bring it in. It's going to be fine for e-commerce because they're going to slot that in terms of probably each picking, right? Most likely, depending on the type of product, or it could be sometimes could be case picking. But if you're that retailer or a wholesaler, it's going to buy in bulk, buy that pack. Well, sure, you're going to be okay for some of them, but the other part of it is that you're going to have to rework that. And in our industry called value added services, and they're going to the 3PL most likely have to do that production order new cartons, and it's a whole nother layer of labor that gets very, very expensive. Another big part of it is on the inbound is item setups, understanding that the 3PL is going to need, and any system, because you're doing it on the supplier end, if it's a retail channel or a marketplace, they want to know most of the time the net weights, the net dimensions of the product. Then they want to know your inner pack dimensions and your master pack dimensions. That needs to be communicated accurately to the 3PL. They need to upload that into their systems and making sure, because everything is, especially when it comes into routing, that's all being
Mm.
pulled through the systems. And a lot more 3PLs are not having to physically go and actually measure one by one, right? Or measure at the time of when they're preparing the load. They already have that information in their palletization software or as well as their WMSs and maybe OMSs, but definitely passing over, making sure the package information on all of these different levels. And big part of it there also is markings, carton markings and carton labeling. Is that if you do have a product that is you're going to have it as a distribute multi-channel, do direct to consumer and B2B, if you get an assigned GTIN already, your UPCs, that is extremely helpful. If not, most of these big box retailers, they need those GTINs markings on those boxes. If not, you're going to do that labeling at the 3PL. Those POs are big. That's an added expenditure. We've seen that a lot of times. These manufacturers overseas are able to do it at a cheaper price, right? Instead of then handling it here, and then you're rushing it, right? So when you could have done it at the manufacturing stage, is usually you want to make sure that you're looking at it as holistically as a whole, as it's like get it ready for a multi-channel distribution a pathway, right? So that's a big part of it as well. So having those markings and labelings. And sometimes there's going to be some retailers that are not going to like certain markings on it. They don't want multiple barcodes. Sometimes you're going to have to cover it up. We have some clients like, hey, well, these two channels do require it. This is going to represent probably 70% of my business. Let's be compliant for those. If I have to rework some other ones or do side or inner packs or different configurations for 20 or 10%, then so be it. But don't do it for the 20% and then get stuck with 80%, right? Especially when you're producing a lot of inventory. It seems like we're constantly tripping away at them like, hey, like can be done. Look, I get it. We make money on these value added services, but that's not how we should work. We like to make money when you guys are making money and your margins are not compromised, because when your total per card fee overhead should be $1.80 for all the services related to these retailers, now it's $2.15 that could have been fixed early on in the manufacturing stage. And then also when it's coming into our facility in the check-in and verification, those cart markings, the dimensions, everything is plugged in, communicated properly, it's required and needed. It's vital.
So if that's where things go wrong, the next obvious question is what separates the operators who stay calm from the ones who are constantly firefighting. So what are the basic controls that make an operation more predictable?
Yeah, on the brand side, again, I will repeat is in close communication with your 3PL. Sometimes they'll bring in the manufacturers in the loop, freight forwarders in the loops. Big part of this also, what did they integrate with? If they're using an ERP, are they using it effectively? Are they using the order management system effectively and the team members behind it, right? That's a big part of it as well. There's going to be obviously a bigger transition over the years that a lot of these systems can be immediately prompted to migrate or automate certain processes of repetition through the AI and eliminate a lot of loose ends that cause errors or problems. But a big part of it is the configurations and settings and understanding that if there's certain changes that are made, and this is a big one that we see over and over again. And it's sometimes it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. There might be team members in a specific department that are working ITs that are okay. Well, this is a new update that's coming along from us, these retailers. You're seeing a lot more that these retailers are updating their vendor guidelines or their systems, but that translates all the way through the network down to when we all of a sudden go and maybe they do something today that does it, but a trigger or a configuration that's done in the back end of a system, a supplier system, that all of a sudden it impacts the 3PL maybe 2 months later, right? Because
Mhm.
now maybe we might not have a PO or something. So making sure like, hey, just because an update there's these updates that are popping up, it's making sure that if there's any sense to where that it's going to affect or translate data through the network, then make sure that your 3PL is aware that certain changes are being made. Big part of it there is also being proactive on the forecasting, right? Understanding that letting the 3PL be in communication, understanding that that's that partnership because it's the 3PL also has a lot of vital information and data. It's like, look, we can help you figure out. You have the systems available. I know sometimes it could be overwhelming. These businesses are working within now between 4, 5, 6, 7 different platforms, right?
Yeah.
And if there's any turnover or the size of the company, it's hard to be an expert at everything, but loop it. So you're looping in your CSM or the executives, maybe certain team members, exec team, special on big projects. That there's a simple dialogue to identify and using the reporting capabilities and data that the 3PL has is vital critical because maybe they might be able to show something that you're not seeing that might impact their decision for earlier on in the stages, right? So
And if you had to stabilize a messy fulfillment setup fast, where would you start?
that's a really good question. It does happen sometimes. It's really just not being shy and look, transparently, we have team members that are dealing directly with the brands day to day. They build relationships with them, right? They make sure that everything is. I'm talking more on the front office team and even like some of the management team that are dealing with the operations. They're the middle. They're the middle person between the brand and their team members and their third parties. They're part of the supply chain, and then obviously our operations. So they build these relationships, and it's like, look, you might really like the person a lot, but we have to service the brand as a whole because ownership then later on is going to see like, hey, you made a lot. A lot of times that happens because we're not, we or 3PL is not strict enough, right? You can bend the rules here and there once in a while, but constantly letting things go because of non-compliance. It usually comes down to really, it's kind of like a workflow that you're breaking that's not compliant. You can do that once or twice, but you can't make that the norm. So to circle back to the initial point is like, hey, you know what? Is having that hard conversation to be like, look, we need to fix X, Y, and Z because this is the root of the problem. And a lot of it, and then what you're seeing is a lot of the complaints you'll see from a brand for a 3PL that does loosen up. One of the common denominators there is inventory management, right? Because of something I mentioned earlier, is that if you are not really strict on your inventory management or the processes before on the item setups, on your inbound verification and workflows and the steps to making sure that everything is either scanned, RF'd, or now there's other different types of automation. If they're not meeting those compliance and you're checking in that inventory and just kind of putting a band-aid on it, you're going to see that down the road and that's going to snowball, right? So again, a collaboration just to ask the hard questions, make sure, and really what it's tightening it up on. And the 3PL sometimes also needs to take the responsibility, right? It's
Mm.
accountability as well. So it's not always on the brand. It's we didn't do this properly. We screwed up. We kind of screwed this up early on. We're going to go ahead and kind of put this into our mechanic shop, right? On our dime, clean it up. It's going to be either a full physical inventory count, do a labeling project, or whatever it might need to be to make sure, okay, this is how we're going to get this part of the business to flow better and then actually scale for success. right? So it's sometimes you have to, yeah, because things might evolve. And it might not be the brand's fault or the 3PL's fault. Just the environment changes. We've seen that happen over the last 5 years, right? How scope of work can easily change in the supply chain with the impact of COVID, right? Or maybe on a smaller sense, like you know, your product might is a geographically are shipping to specific areas in the world that now there's something's going on over there, right? Or parcel carriers are not servicing, right? So, or your situations with the tariffs, right? So, there's a lot. So, being strict, but also have to be nimble and understanding that. But there's going to be some changes. It just comes down to accountability and having that direct line of communication with the brand.
Okay. And what's more important? Better systems, better process discipline, better people, something else?
All the above, all the above. More and more now, it's just like it's as a 3PL perspective is okay, there's a lot of repetition. Where's their automation behind this repetition? A lot of these AI programs, agentic AI agents and models is to where's their learned behavior that can be calculated and plugged in and essentially give the team or give upper hand to the operations or the brand to make better decisions. There's so many different areas now that even on the inbound process, so where there's an AI plugin that you can have it to where it's assessing the inventory that's coming in terms of already obviously has all the data of those item setups and SKUs, and then understands the patterns of velocity of which channels are moving, the volume it's moving, and predicting already where it should go within the facility to eliminate less touch points, be more efficient, right? And a lot of time it's taking the thinking out of the person, making decisions that maybe I would make a certain decision, but you might make a different decision. No, let's have this more calculated where it's going to be best for both sides, right? So, yeah.
Okay. And so, where does automation help, or where do humans still make the difference? Where are they necessary?
Yeah. So look, as of right now, there's different levels of 3PLs, and I can't speak for everyone, but from where we stand right now is we're using automation as a tool. It's in our tool belt. It's just an additional tool that is part of the everyday decision making, better assist in funneling the information. That's just a lot of it's all the AI plugins that we have in some of our systems that are being able to predict or make decisions that makes sense to the client's fulfillment logistics program. But there's still obviously human involvement. Sometimes 3 or 4 different parties involved. You have that freight forwarder contacting you. You might have someone in that's only focused on the making sure the replenishments or the procurement process is being explained correctly to your team so that you know what to do if you have these value-added services that are just outside the norm that you're going to have to run through a production line, but there's different quality control parameters. So a lot of it, again, going back to it, when there's a lot of repetition and a sequence of the same type of events over and over again, there's not that much adjustment. That's where you like really plug in, where you can have either robotics or automation to really flow that faster and with accuracy. But there's still a lot of nuances within 3PLs where that's where the human intervention is needed and follow ups. So
Okay. I mean, there's a common belief that more software automatically means better operations. Do you think the industry has oversold that a little?
great question and loaded question there, right? I would say, yeah, you know what? There's a fit for everyone. So maybe depending on the 3PL or if they're a specialist, and there's some 3PLs that are only doing just e-commerce. They only want to focus on e-commerce, or there's specific industries or commodities. They want to only stick to apparel and only maybe or beauties, right? The skincares, the cosmetics, the hair care. And if they can flow that through specific systems that they know that these are specialized, whether it's an AI program or these order management systems or whatever flow that they want that they feel like their automation or systems will be effective in, then great. Now, is there challenges for a lot of these systems to play nice? Absolutely. That's the struggle. Hopefully, is that now that you have a lot of these AI systems out there available, they're a lot more nimble. It automatically can figure out and write code for you, right? And can go ahead and put so sometimes you had that didn't have access to or cannot connect with certain applications. Now they can. Maybe they might offer it. They might be a black box program, but they might be able to connect just speak through these AI algorithms or these AI models that just are able to figure out in 2 minutes. You're seeing that these AI applications that can create a website can write a whole program that would normally take engineers or tech personnel weeks or months to develop, and it's done within minutes, right? So to go back to your question, it's kind of more of a wait and see, right? I don't have the direct answer. I do know that a lot of our clients still need that, human interaction involvement, but utilizing, yeah, of course, they do want to see automation, especially as that they scale. The approach there is a lot of times is, and they like how we approach it. Like we don't want a brand to go into a certain market or a specific channel, retailer. It doesn't matter what it is, right? That they feel like, oh well, this 3PL will not be able to handle this, does not have the experience. You do have to have the diversification of your skills and workflows and experience and connections and that you've done it before, that if they go into that specific market, they have the confidence that you are not going to be hindering them, because obviously everything is right now is quickly reported with analytics and everything is performance based, right? So these systems will rate you on performance and could either drop you or penalize you, right? If you're not performing, meeting the demands of their PO deliveries or whatever it might be, right? So, yeah.
Sure. That gets us, I guess, to the payoff. Everyone is talking about efficiency, but listeners will want to know what better actually looks like. So when fulfillment gets more disciplined, what changes first?
First, the obvious one is a lot less errors, right? That's a big one. Honestly, yeah. I know that might be the obvious answer there, but it frees up time for the brand and the 3PL to focus on helping the brand scale. Start looking into areas where they can improve on. Because what I can see is that if you're spending a lot of time on with just a lot of the challenges, well, that's where the time's going, is in those challenges. There's
Mm,
so many other areas that are on the peripherals that just what happens? They just kick the can down the road. It just doesn't materialize because you're so focused on trying to fix the problem, fix it, but actually really spend the time to fix it, but then move on. Like a big one is there. It's like there's so much that these brands could do, and like they're within their transportation. By transportation as a whole, I'm talking about just let's isolate like parcel, right? You can get really dynamic in your parcel programs now. There's just tweaks that can be made in a lot of different areas. Either on the brand side, where they're just in their shopping cart, the way that they're collaborating again with the 3PL that has a TMS where they can do a lot of business rules and optimize their program, essentially utilizing a multi-carrier network to drive prices down on those parcels, on each individual parcels, but be effective. And also you can still drop prices and keep speed. So everyone just thinks speed is more expensive. Not always necessarily, depending on there's, again, going back to topics earlier, is how was that product brought in? Can you position your product to where just a couple inches in that case, or switching it to a specific type of poly bag could change the parameters of which carrier be chosen based off of, again, the setups within the transportation management systems to rate shop. And you have opportunity there to really impact the overall sale, right? There's a lot of, you'll see brands talk about, yeah, there's unusually a high amount of carts being abandoned, right? Well, what's the root of that, right? What are we looking at? Is it your price? Is there something just internally in your systems that something's happening? And naturally, like, hey, customers, like, they'll look at it and maybe they just change their mind. But a lot of times it's effectively they see that price point. They obviously want to go choose it because they want to buy it, but do they get crushed in their shipping and handling, right? Is there something there that they didn't, again, collaborate with your 3PL that's willing to go in there and take a nosedive and be like, yes, this works for this to a one unit order, but once you go to 2 or 3 units, it's putting it $5 and then $10 and $15. It's not the way to go about it. I know I'm giving a snapshot of an easy scenario, but things like that, it can get pretty intricate.
okay. What shipping decisions would you say have an outsized effect on margin that most brands overlook?
Yeah, it's a good question there. I would say it's not a one size fits all. Things change. I keep repeating the same thing, that collaboration again with these experts. If you're outsourcing to a 3PL, right? It's that having those follow-up calls. The 3PL might have a new, have a new carrier and a new service that might be really beneficial for your type of shipping zone. Understanding your zone shipping, what specific zones are heavy, right? We have those, I'm just not to say point to us, but a lot of 3PLs out there have those tools available within their dashboards, and that can be shared. That data is all available real time. Jump into those, access those. Those are vital in making significant business decision. It's the first thing that these brands will think of when a lot of the 3PLs, or if they're self-fulfilling, a lot of times between January and March, you'll see price increases with a lot of these parcel carriers. That's just a parcel carrier that just be automatically go to, well, and the 3PL as well might be also increasing their rates, right? Slightly, 2%, 4%, 5, whatever it might be. Immediately it's like, hey, that bounces over, just pass that cost along. No, that's like, all right, where do we cut the fat from? Is that something to where it's like, does this really have to impact our margin? Or did we not like look at the whole network as a whole? Let's go ahead and dive in, because most of the time that something that you looked at in January 2025 that you're looking at 2026, there's new topics and there's new programs and tweaks that can happen. And again, with the new AI tools and sophistication and overall the marketplace of parcels, they're grinding, they're all competing against each other. Have a lot of regional carriers that are able to be plugged in, that are going to be great. And that's something that needs to be looked at. So as a whole, yeah, it needs to be reviewed from A to Z, individual on every channel, but also how that integration and those business rules interact with the 3PL, because there is optimization that can be done most of the time that doesn't have to really impact the margin. Yeah.
Okay. Now, as we're both, and everyone listening is painfully aware, supply chain has a rude habit of not standing still, but changing all the time. So looking ahead a little bit, what do you think will matter most in fulfillment over the next 2 or 3 years?
Yes, as you were presenting the question, is taking a look at, especially if you're a lot of the manufacturing that you're seeing is it's happening overseas. We saw that with the impact with the tariffs. Taking a look at, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Maybe that's something that sticks out. We've had a couple
Mm,
of clients saw certain things early. I've had some conversations to where we kind of saw it coming. So we're like, hey, look, we started still planting, not planting seeds, but looking at other factories or manufacturers that would be able to quickly bring us on board and produce for us, just in case something happens within my, the current supply chain manufacturing solution. So again, yeah, there's a not putting all your eggs in one basket, something there. Another one is, yeah, it's everyone's going to have to adopt AI. You're going to have to some area in your business you're going to need to. I was at Manifest, even this was last year in Las Vegas, and you walk into this 20,000 square foot room that it looks like an enormous movie screen. And to start the show, it was just black writing with white letters that says, adopt AI in your supply chain or your business will die. So it was right in front of you right there. And it was right in your face right there. It was like, okay, you caught my attention, and it's going to exponentially grow. Like in the last 4 months, it's grown 4 or 5x. I could be butchering those numbers, but
sure.
it's rapidly rising. So the brand should educate themselves on if they're choosing or they're looking to outsource to a 3PL, and they have to go down the hole, or go down the rabbit hole on, well, exactly what does your AI do? Because those are loaded questions too, right? But it's understanding, having some familiarity with it. But as if there's 3PLs listening, then they're already having those conversations, or it's already, they have different pockets of their business where either within their automation, their robots, or their system communication, it's already implemented or going to be implemented, right? So, yeah.
There's an old saying where they say fulfillment is like one of those things that works like oxygen. Nobody notices it until there isn't enough of it around. So, um,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
with that in mind, how do you think brands should think about choosing between in-house fulfillment and outsourcing as complexity rises?
Sure. Yeah, it's another great question there. Look, at the end of the day, time is money. And also geographically, you could be in an area where the cost of just shipping from your zone, if you're self-fulfilling in a remote area, you're paying a premium, or you're just having to get in your car or drop off if you can't get a pickup. We get calls all the time, or RFQs to our different sites for requests for quotes, right? Just in general. And if there's like they're first starting up, and it's like that's what I'm saying. There's a budget, like a significant budget that you have to throw to outsource, because these are your outsourcing professional services, and there's a
Mm,
lot involved in there. And a lot of look, the reality is a lot of 3PLs, they're very careful and they don't want to touch a brand that has only 10 orders a day, right? It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with them. There's too many resources and overhead in general. It doesn't make sense to give you a pricing model that would work for you. Now, there is some smaller 3PLs that might they want to take that on, and they see that they take a chance on it, because we've done it ourselves. There's brands that came to us that came in with 0 orders, and now they're doing 700 orders a day. And if we never gave them an opportunity, well, that they wouldn't have gotten there. But to focus back more on your question, there is that resources, operations costs, insurances, labor. Like, you still have labor, right? Not everyone, if you're self-fulfilling, yeah, unless you have a lot of money in that bank account to invest in in your fulfillment process, you're probably not having the automation available, because it is expensive, robotics, all that stuff. Obviously, warehouse space, right?
mm.
And the big part of it is there is a 3PL can move with your business, can scale, if the volume drops down, there's more predictability there. A big part of it is the experience and the knowledge of how it's supposed to work, the workflows and the integrations, being able to connect. It's a lot of times you have these brands that are they now are interested in a 3PL because they got a buyer interested, or was connected with a buyer, and they had a meeting, and they want to bring on their e-commerce brand into a retail channel, right? They want to go into the Sephora or Walmart or Target, and they're like, but these buyers are also very hesitant to be like, "Hey, you have to be EDI compliant, right? So, now I need to get a 3PL, right? I need to look into getting a 3PL to handle all channels, right? To be able to scale and put your energy towards. Big part of it is, if they're not worrying about having everything I just talked about, having the overhead, the employees, the facility, dealing with insurances, material handling equipment, everything that comes with it, that frees yourself up when you're almost, a lot of times you're paying as you go, as you utilize the service, and you can put your time and energy of actually R&D, marketing, building the brand. A lot of it's also, we're seeing a lot of big push on these social media channels, right? And they're able to spend a lot of time doing collaborations really with marketing, right? So, yeah.
All right. And when listeners think about fulfillment after this conversation, what do you want them to see differently?
Want them to, yeah, I want them to see that it's essential. Obviously, if you're looking at it for fulfillment or 3PL, because that's what I'm doing personally, right? They are your hands, eyes, and ears. They're an extension of your brand. They impact your brand significantly. Big part I want them to also look at is, look, pricing is not everything. Cheaper is not better. Like, don't only just look at the price. Be inquisitive. It's very simple nowadays. You can throw it into the Geminis, the ChatGPTs. They're all going to make, because it is a commitment. It's a big decision. It's an investment, and understand that there's going to be a look at to where do they handle products or commodities or the channels that you're looking to go into? Do they have some of those similar brands that you'll either look up to, or that you compare to, or but look at it as that it's a serious component. And don't think that it's just, hey, we're going to, now that we got them, they take care of everything. It is a team effort. Give it everything that you got. We've noticed that, look, without having to put a big scope of work around it or a benchmark, we see just the ones that really engage fully with as our clients, they engage with us day in and day out, really put the effort to meet our compliance guidelines and share information, actually jump on the scheduled calls that we do. We actually, like, those are the ones that operate much better. They scale actually quicker. The ones that we see, the ones that we see, they're just like, it's fine. We'll do this later. We'll talk about it later. Do you see that's where they struggle? So, yeah, be inquisitive, do your homework, compare. 'Cause, like, I said, it's, what I would tell them is, look, pricing is not everything. Cheaper is not better. Like, don't only just look at the price. Be inquisitive. To your homework, compare. 'Cause, like, I said, it's, what I would tell them is, look, pricing is not everything. Cheaper is not better. Like, don't only just look at the price. Be inquisitive. Do your homework, compare. Understand that it's the customer experience is everything, right? At the end of the day, is that you need to deliver accurately, a lot of times with speed, but that whole experience from when someone places an order until it reaches it, to your 3PL or your fulfillment process is part of that. Make that special, make that important because it does shine through when it is all interconnected.
Okay. We're coming towards the end of the podcast now, Leo. Is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I did, or any aspect of this we haven't touched on that you think it's important for people to be aware of?
We covered quite a bit. I don't nothing that comes to mind right now. Maybe a couple minutes would, but I think we got a good amount of stuff there.
Brilliant. Okay, superb. So, Leo, if people would like to know more about yourself or any of the things we discussed on the podcast today, where would you have me direct them?
Yeah, so you can find Riverplay Inc. Just www.riverplayinc.com. You can find our social media, LinkedIn. My full name is Leonardo Rodriguez. We're just fully doing this revamp, really putting ourselves out there. We've been around for over 32 years. So our community, Southern California, started like really do know us. We get a lot of referrals. But now, as we're scaling and really growing the business professionally and virtually out there, we're trying to make an impact. So, yes, you find us through our social media handles or just visit our website. Feel free to call us also as well. That's fine.
Perfect. Leo, that's been fascinating. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
Tom, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.